Pam eagerly made her way to school. While she was always enthusiastic about learning, school could sometimes be quite dull. However, today was different. Today, the turn would arrive. It was the most exciting event since Misha got sick for a day, leading them to spend the cultural studies period watching old entertainment media. Even though the turn coming to the school was in her grade and likely not a heroic soldier or a Tides blessed super pilot yet, everyone knew that turn meant adventure. Everyone also knew that the first contact with the turn resulted in one turn eliminating an entire planet of evil villains. Mai said that story was exaggerated, claiming the turn only took out a gang. But Mai was overweight, so Pam dismissed her opinion. Anyway, even if the real story wasn't as thrilling, with the ongoing war, a new turn hero emerged every decade. Who knows? Maybe the one joining her class would know a hero personally. With these pleasant thoughts, Pam skipped beside the canal, while her classmates passed her by, taking the faster route. Most of them thought she was funny for walking, but she didn't care. She preferred keeping her clothes and fur dry, and never got a 0 on homework due to a backpack leak. Despite walking, she was always punctual. As Pam and her classmates took their seats, there was no sign of the turn, although a slightly bigger desk near the door sat empty. Unsurprisingly, the entire class was buzzing with whispers about the missing turn, ignoring their teacher, Moya, until she thumped her strong tail on the floor and shouted, "Settle down." Once the class had calmed, she said with exasperation, "We have a new student today, though from your gossip, I think you know already. Neville Neiman comes from a planet in the Republic of Terra, but I'll let him introduce himself." She turned to the door and called, "Neville, come in, please." Pam's heart pounded in her chest as a bipedal figure darkened the doorway. But when the boy's gangly frame awkwardly entered and took a nervous, pigeon-toed stance, Pam's jaw dropped in sheer disappointment. His clothes were ill-fitting and garishly colored. He wore thick corrective lenses. His hair was a messy mop of orange curls, and he jittered and fidgeted in place. He didn't look heroic at all. Neville took a deep breath and let it out in a rush. "I'm Neville Neiman and I come from a planet in the Republic called Hope 8. I know it's not the most creative colony name, but I can tell you about it later if you care. Anyway, my dad's here to consult on your latest shipbuilding project, and my mom doesn't like station life, so we're living planet-side. I hope we can be friends if you want." He stood there until Moya realized he had rambled through his introduction without pausing for breath. "Thank you, Neville. Please take your seat. I'm sure you'll make lots of friends here," she told him before starting a lesson on decimals. Pam tried hard to pay attention, followed by a poetry lesson, which Mai paid less attention to. Then, it was time for recess. The moment Moya dismissed the class, all 15 students, except for Neville, tried to crowd around him. However, Neville proved more adept than he initially seemed, or the general press of students allowed him to slip away through the door. Pam wondered if he could sense everyone wanted to bombard him with questions and ran away before they could. The entire 20-minute recess was spent by the school searching for Neville without success, but he reappeared when the bell rang to start class again. Neville materialized in the hallway just as his new classmates were filing into their classroom to continue their lessons for the day. Pam was so distracted by trying to figure out how he could have possibly done that she had no idea what Ms. Masha was droning on about until lunchtime. Could Neville turn invisible? Some cuttlefish could blend into their surroundings, so maybe Neville could do that too. Or perhaps his shipbuilder dad had given him some super top-secret stealth tech. She just had so many questions. The bell for lunchtime rang, but Ms. Masha was giving instructions. "Now, I know you're excited, but it's obvious that Neville doesn't like to be crowded or charged by a mob of 15 of you. So you're to give him at least a tail's length and allow him to eat his lunch. Understand?" A chorus of resigned responses came from the children. "Yes, Ms. Masha. Okay, you can go to lunch now. Anyone who breaks that rule will take a demerit home." More groaning and mumbling ensued as the class dug lunchboxes, meal tickets, or credit chits out of their backpacks and filed out the door. Pam had hoped to walk and talk with Neville, but his long legs quickly carried him away. Try as she or any of her classmates might, the gap between them only grew. However, they did catch up to him at the lunch tables where he was already eating. "Well, he was eating something," Mai asked between panting breaths. "What are you eating?" Of course, I would waste the first question on food. A sandwich. Sliced filling between two outer bread slices. This one is ham and cheese, Neville said after swallowing a bite. What's ham? Mac asked, and Pam glared daggers at my. Frustrated that the conversation was stuck on food instead of something more interesting, like what kind of superpowers Neville might have. Ham is a cured meat product made from a livestock animal, Neville answered before taking another bite. Pam decided that whatever language he was speaking with, under what her translator implant was playing in her ear, sounded fine. What's bread? Someone else asked. Well, there's like grains that get farmed and... Oh, so it's grain-based. I wonder if we can eat it, Mai interrupted, because of course she did. Neville only shrugged before taking a pull from a water bottle. Pam took the opportunity to ask a real question. Can you read minds? Water shot out of Neville's nostrils and he started making the most awful hacking coughing sounds as some of the other girls glared at Pam while somebody asked, Are you okay? Do you need medical? Eventually, Neville managed to wheeze, I'm fine. I'm fine. That's just what happens to a human if we laugh while trying to drink something. Pam let out a relieved sigh. No, I can't read minds. Why would you ask that? Well, because you escaped at recess. I could see you all coming. All of you looking at me. All of you coming my way. I just didn't want to get squished. Bix piped up, How did you hide? I'm not telling that. What if I want to hide again? Do you have camouflaging pigment sacs in your skin? Pam pressed. Neville tilted his head to one side and said slowly, No, that's a weird thing to ask. Is it? We don't know how your biology works. I thought that. Yes, being warm-blooded bipeds is common knowledge by now. Well, did you use advanced top-secret stealth tech from your dad? If I did, I wouldn't be allowed to say so. Wait, said Bix. I thought you were a Terran, but you said you're a human. Oh, I'm a Terran because my ancestors are from Terra, and I'm a human because that's my species or race, whichever. Not all Terrans are humans, if you didn't already know. A low murmur of excitement ran through the crowd, and Mai asked, What other races are Terran? The Doggos, the Big Kitties, the Digons, and the Chimpmandos. Did you evolve together on Terra? I don't know really, except the Digions. They're digital sapients, so they didn't evolve exactly. Did you ever meet Sneaky? Pam asked before anyone could ask another boring question. No, it's not like every Terran knows every other Terran. Besides, he died before I was born. Oh, and his name was Greg George. Mai got a positively evil look on her face as she bared her fangs and laid her ears back, asking, Is it true that Greg George killed a whole planet of evil villains? Neville snickered at that, and Pam's heart sank right through the floor as he explained, Nah, he and some star sailors took down a major crime syndicate because they'd kidnapped a kid from the family who was helping him come home. I can find the whole story in my history texts later if you want. I like the whole planet story though. It sounds super cool. Mai had her tail raised in an infuriatingly smug way as she asked, Only a baby would believe the planet story, huh? Pam slunk away to eat her clams alone before she heard the answer to that one, and hoped that everyone was too busy paying attention to Neville to notice. After spending the rest of the lunch period stoically contemplating the nature of the world, or rather sulking, Pam found the ensuing history lesson a lot easier to pay attention to. It gave her a reason not to see Mai's stupid smug face cutting her eyes at her. Then Ms. Masha held the class past the bell to give Neville a 30-second head start, claiming he probably could use some rest as if Terrans weren't basically superhuman. The next day, Samantha's class was noticeably less distracted by Zephyr, the new student. His usual lunch table crowd had dwindled by exactly one person. Each subsequent day, the number of students at his table continued to decrease until, eventually, Zephyr was just another student to most of the school. A few days later, almost without anyone noticing, Zephyr had become just another peculiar-looking alien student who, despite his appearance, wasn't all that strange once the initial novelty wore off. It was then that Zephyr decided to sit down next to Samantha one day and ask bluntly, Did I hurt your feelings? I'm sorry for laughing at your questions. Samantha had to muster all her strength to keep her ears up and her shoulders square, despite the urge to shrink into herself. You didn't hurt my feelings, she replied. I just really thought it was true that all your people are superheroes with laser eyes and lightning breath. Zephyr asked with a hint of amusement. Really? Samantha giggled and clarified. Well, maybe not exactly like that. I'm not a hero or anything. I'm just a kid.
I'm sorry.
I just thought sneaky adventures through space were like your version of SATs. Zephyr's eyes glittered, and he smiled widely. Not quite, he said encouragingly. This small encouragement was all Zephyr needed to launch into a discussion about his favorite cartoon, which quickly became a shared enthusiasm. They almost didn't notice when the bell signaled the end of the lunch period. Later, on her walk home, Samantha realized that cheering up a lonely kid was exactly the kind of thing a hero might do. From then on, she and Zephyr met regularly to talk about the latest episodes of SATs, their favorite older episodes, and what was true or not about Zephyr's people compared to what was shown on TV. Through these conversations, Samantha learned a lot. For instance, humans really did drink insane amounts of ethanol, but only adults. They could eat almost anyone's food, and the power of friendship was very real. Zephyr insisted it was, even though Samantha jokingly said her fat face could cry about it. One day, Samantha saw some older boys cornering Zephyr by a canal a few blocks away from school. They must have been from a different school since she didn't recognize them. They looked mean. Despite being shorter than Zephyr, they were shoving him around and taunting him as he tried to maintain his balance. What's the matter, alien? Where's your super strength? Come on, pull out your laser gun. One of the boys jeered. Maybe they're only tough in armor. I heard they can breathe underwater. Let's see if he can swim first. Another mocked as he shoved Zephyr into the canal. Samantha stepped forward, but exhaled in relief when she saw Zephyr treading water. I can't breathe underwater.
No gills.
I'm a mammal, Zephyr shouted as the bullies dove in to swim around him, splashing him and laughing before darting off down the canal. Samantha hurried to her friend. Are you okay? She asked.
I'm fine.
They didn't hurt me. I just need to find my glasses, Zephyr responded. Without stopping to think, Samantha dove into the water, darting to the bottom of the canal. The glasses had drifted a little way, but they weren't hard to find. Here they are, she said proudly as she surfaced. Thanks, Zephyr muttered, taking them from her. As they walked home, still dripping wet, Samantha couldn't help but ask, why didn't you stand up to them? Huh? Why didn't you fight them? She pressed. Zephyr forced a smile. I told you, I'm not a hero or anything. Besides, there were 5 of them. I would have had to hurt them to make them stop. I don't know if I could do that. But they're bullies. They deserve to be hurt, Samantha insisted. Zephyr shrugged. Maybe or maybe not. I don't like fighting though, and I don't like hurting people. Samantha couldn't explain why Zephyr's answer made her so mad, but it did. Well, if they do it again, I'll stand up to them, she declared, her voice firm. Neville laughed in a friendly manner. Now I really feel sorry for them, Pam. GR only grunted in response. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, but Pam didn't see any more evidence of anyone picking on Neville. In fact, despite his atrocious fashion sense, he seemed to be becoming rather popular. Their lunchtime talks grew into a small circle of other kids who would come and go, chatting about homework, recently found books, the latest movies, and other sundries. This was great for Pam because it meant she wasn't alone as much anymore. She was having such a good time that she had completely forgotten about May. May, however, had not forgotten. One day, Pam found a note in her desk. Pam, I have something important to talk to you about. Please meet me in the gym equipment room at lunchtime. Bix. What could be so important that Bix had to leave a note for a private chat? Didn't he know he could just come up and ask her directly by now? Well, sometimes boys did things that made no sense, so Pam decided to go along with it and see what he wanted. She realized she had made a mistake when a bucket of spoiled clams and hagfish slime clattered off its precarious perch on a shelf above the equipment room door and onto her head, leaving her with a bruised noggin and covered in filth. Things got worse when the gym doors were flung open and a crowd of about 50 students, led by May, came in to see Pam in her sorry state. Oh look, the slime girl is all covered in slime. What a filthy little thing, May crowed, puffing out her chest and lifting her tail in a display of dominance. Pam cringed into a humiliated ball, anticipating the laughter of her classmates. Instead, Neville called out, "Are you proud of yourself, May?"
What?
May retorted. "I asked you if you're proud of yourself," he repeated, with an almost sad note in his voice. "Sure, why not?" May replied defiantly. "Do you think being a petty, cruel, hurtful jerk is something to be proud of?" "Shut up. What do you know?" May snapped. "I know that you wanted to hurt my friend for no good reason, and you're proud of it. I know you're not the kind of person anybody wants to be friends with," Neville said. Pam tried to sink through the floor, but Neville was there, whispering, "Come on, let's go to the office." "You lied," Pam sniffled as he helped her to her feet. "Huh. You are a hero," she said.